Sup guys, it's Alex here and welcome to another Bracketology update. This one is for January 28th and we have an absolutely crazy weekend of college basketball ahead of us. We have Kentucky versus Kansas, the prime time game, 6 p.m. on Saturday. I am so pumped for it. We also have big games like Baylor versus Alabama, Texas versus Tennessee. It should be a good one. Duke versus Louisville without their head coach Chris Mack, who got fired they settled on a buyout earlier this week. That was a failure at UVL. I thought it was a good hire at the time, but things just haven't worked out for him. But taking a look here at the Bracketology, I guess one thing I do want to mention before we get into the bracket watch is Auburn. So I did watch their game against Missouri, and I know that they did beat Missouri on the road by 1 point. Missouri's 8-10, so it looked kind of bad from just like looking at it on surface level. But if you watch the game, Jabari Smith had an awful game, 1 for 15. Kessler not really having an impact on the game, but you know who stepped up? The man in that picture right there, KD Johnson. He put the team on his back when it mattered most. And it was refreshing to see Auburn when their star players were not performing. They didn't quit. They didn't lose. They had another person step up, so that gives me more confidence in their ability to do so when it comes down to crunch time, clutch time, whatever you want to call it, whenever the SEC and NCAA tournaments come around. And then taking a look here at the rest of the bracket. First team out is Florida. Last team in is Oregon. Then taking a look here at the bubble. Last four byes are TCU, Arkansas, who have been moving their way back up into the field, Creighton coming the other way, and then San Francisco. Last four in are West Virginia, San Diego State, North Carolina, and Oregon. First four out are Florida, Mississippi State, Wyoming, and Michigan, so it's kind of funny to see Wyoming ahead of Michigan on an at-large ranking. And then the next four out are Texas A&M, SMU, Notre Dame, and Belmont. So taking a look here at the bracket, taking some looks at the movements. But before I get into the movements, I think I said it in the last Bracketology, but I have bought tickets for the Indianapolis Regional for both rounds 1 and round 2. That would be super fun. So right now the current pairings are down here at the bottom: Iowa State, Boise State, and then Purdue, Appalachian State. And then over here, this is where it matters. As you guys know, I'm a Kentucky fan. As of today, I would get to see Kentucky in Indianapolis, especially with this game here, Marquette versus Murray State. You guys know, if you've been watching my videos, that I am not a big Marquette fan, but I believe a lot in Marquette this year. And to have them face Kentucky in the second round, I want to have Marquette make a run through the tournament as a mid-major Cinderella sort of thing. But, if they're getting paired up with Kentucky in the second round, I don't know if it can happen, man. But taking a look here at the rest of the movement, we have Texas Tech down to a 4. Arkansas new to the field as an 11. Davidson down to a 10. They lost to VCU at home last night, or 2 nights ago, something like that. Loyola Chicago up to an 8. They had a scare against Southern Illinois or something like that last night, but they did come out the win. Oklahoma up to a 9. Then we have North Carolina and Oregon both falling to last 4 in. I think Oregon remained in last 4 in, just a little bit further down. We have Providence up to a 4, which is crazy. Xavier down to a 6. Creighton down to a 10. Then we have Miami up to a 9. They had a crazy half-court buzzer beater over NC State this week. LSU down to a 5. West Virginia and San Diego State falling down a little bit. Wisconsin falling as well. Murray State up to an 11. Kentucky up to a 3. Arizona down to a 2 after losing to UCLA. And then Kansas takes their spot on the 1 line. Seton Hall down to a 9. I was a big fan of Seton Hall earlier in the season, but they have not been showing much at all as of late. Then San Francisco up to an 11, Villanova up to a 3, and then Boise State up to a 10. So as you guys know, every time there's Bracketology that is uploaded, I give my thoughts and predictions for the actual tournament itself if it were to start today. And man, I am super excited for this tournament, man. We're, a month and a half away, something like that. I think next Bracketology I do, it's going to be February on Tuesday, so that'll be super exciting. And it is almost time for the top 16 reveal, the top 4 seeds reveal. I couldn't remember which way I was going to say it there. I think that's coming midway through February too, so we're almost near there. But I've been blabbing a lot. It is time to get into my predictions. So starting off, we have Auburn beating the winner of Southern and New Orleans. Then we're going to have Florida State beat Indiana. These two teams are completely evenly matched in my eyes, so I just wanted to pick a little upset there. Then Ohio State, I do think, can beat UAB. Just not 100% sold on UAB yet as one of those upset teams. the Cinderella teams, we're going to have Texas Tech moving on past South Dakota State. Arkansas as an 11. I think Eric Musselman is doing a great job there. That team is starting to catch fire here as SEC play begins. I think they can pull off the upset against Connecticut. And we're going to have Michigan State moving on past Jacksonville State, Texas beating Davidson, and then Duke over Cleveland State. Then for our spot in the Sweet 16, we got Auburn advancing past Florida State. Then we are going to have Texas Tech moving on past Ohio State, then Michigan State over Arkansas, and then along with Duke over Texas. So some chalk right now going up into the Sweet 16 here. Auburn, I do think, will beat Texas Tech. I believe a lot in Texas Tech this year, just not against Auburn currently. And then I am going to go with a little switcheroo here and go with Michigan State here, upsetting Duke. Michigan State has only lost one game since, actually no, I think it's 2 games since like the end of November. They lost to Northwestern, which is a weird loss, but then they also just lost to Illinois by 1 point on the road. But that was that was a good ending to that game. But I think that Michigan State can beat Duke, but then they will fall to Auburn here in the Elite Eight. Auburn advances to the Final Four out of that regional. So moving on down to the bottom left here, we got Kansas moving on past Longwood. Make the jokes as you will there. Wake Forest moving on past Seton Hall. Illinois moving on past Iona, the fighting Rick Pitino's. Then we'll have Tennessee beating Toledo. Then I'm going to go with another upset pick here with San Francisco. I think the WCC West Coast Conference this year is looking really good. They'll probably get 4 teams in the tournament with Gonzaga, BYU, St. Mary's, and San Francisco. And then USC lost again last night to Stanford. I'm almost guaranteed to have them lose in the first round in the NCAA tournament this year. I just do not believe in that team. Then Villanova will beat Wagner. Iowa State will beat Boise State, then Purdue will beat Appalachian State. So then for a spot in the Sweet 16, Kansas moving on past Wake Forest. Then I'm going to go with Tennessee moving on past Illinois, though that game is another 50-50 game, could go either way. Villanova, I do think, would beat San Francisco. This is a spot where I really wish like Marquette would have been. I wish they would have been the 6th seed over here, so that way I could have them moving on past Villanova. But oh well. Then we'll have Purdue moving on past Iowa State. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we'll have Kansas advancing on past Tennessee, along with Purdue over Villanova. And then for a spot in the Final Four, you got to go with Kansas out of these teams in this regional. So then moving on over to, we'll go with the bottom right since we already have it pulled up. Baylor versus Colgate. We'll go with Baylor there. Miami versus BYU. I do think that Miami, Florida can get that win. LSU, I think, will beat the winner of San Diego State and West Virginia, which at this point would probably be San Diego State. Wisconsin will beat Chattanooga. Marquette will beat Murray State. Kentucky will beat Princeton. Then I'm going to go with an upset pick here and go with the 10-7 with St. Mary's over Iowa. Arizona moving on past Weber State. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, Baylor moving on past Miami. Then we're going to have LSU falling to Wisconsin there. Kentucky moving on past Marquette. As much as I want to pick Marquette to move on, I just can't do it against Kentucky. And then we're going to go with St. Mary's falling to Arizona there. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, I keep saying Final Four while we're in the Elite Eight. Baylor, I think, will beat Wisconsin. And then I think that Kentucky will beat Arizona. But then for a spot in the Final Four, I got my boys, the Kentucky Wildcats, advancing past Baylor. Kentucky, I think, is very well-rounded this year. Offense is one of the top teams in the nation. You got Oscar Tshiebwe, National Player of the Year contender, averaging like 15 and 15 a game. And we might be getting Shaedon Sharpe back, or getting him up and running. He's been signing his NIL deals. He is a projected top 10 pick in the NBA draft. Hasn't played a game yet because he just reclassified. If he joins this roster, I don't see how they can't be a Final Four favorite at this point. Then moving on up to the top regional, Gonzaga, I think, obviously, I don't think I know they're going to beat the winner of the play-in game there. Loyola Chicago will fall to Oklahoma. Porter Moser will get revenge against his former team there. That's a nice little narrative game. Alabama will fall to the winner of North Carolina and Oregon, which I think would probably be North Carolina at this point. Providence will beat Vermont. Then I think that TCU will beat Xavier. I'm just not sold on Xavier, man. They've lost the majority. I think they've lost like 3 out of their last 5 games or something like that. I just don't believe in Xavier. Then Houston will beat Seattle. Then we're going to go with Colorado State over Creighton and UCLA over Cal State Fullerton. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we got Gonzaga moving on past Oklahoma. I do think that the winner of UNC and Oregon will move on. We got to have at least one double-digit seed in the Sweet 16. I think that they can beat Providence. Houston will move on past TCU. This is a cupcake regional for Houston to move on to the Sweet 16 the second weekend. And then UCLA will beat Colorado State. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we got Gonzaga moving on past the winner of UNC and Oregon. Then UCLA beating Houston to set up a rematch of the game of the year last year, one of the best games of all time, Gonzaga versus UCLA. And I'm going to go with UCLA here. They're getting their pieces back. They just took down Arizona. I think this team will be battle-tested, especially with a chip on their shoulder from last year's buzzer beater from Jalen Suggs and Gonzaga. I think that team moves on to the Final Four. So we have 2 1 seeds here. We have a number 2 seed and then a number 3 seed as well. So we're not going too chalky with 4 number 1 seeds in there. Auburn versus Kansas for a spot in the national championship game. I do think you have to go with Auburn at that point. Then UCLA versus Kentucky. I think Kentucky will advance to the national championship game in that little game right there against UCLA. Battle of 2 of the best programs of all time. I mean, 3 of the best programs of all time if you want to bring in Kansas. And then Auburn versus Kentucky, a rematch of what happened just this past Saturday. I think I really want to pick my Kentucky Wildcats to advance, but I just can't do it. I got to go with Auburn yet. Until Shaden Sharp actually joins the roster, I can't pick them to actually win the national championship. So there we have it. We have Auburn winning the national championship here. Thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave your own predictions and stuff like that in the comments section below to see what happens with this NCAA tournament. I want to see what you guys think. Let me know what you think of my own predictions, and I will see you all later. Thanks for watching.